Alright guys, HyDra again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. This time next week, the CDL will officially be underway and the first matches will have gone down. OpTic are getting their final preparations, it seems, in over the next couple of days. They played a scrim last night against a Challengers team, but that's Huke's roster. Basically the best team in Challengers right now, and yes, OpTic come out on top in the scrim, but a couple of maps here Huke absolutely fries, continuing to make a pretty compelling case that he should be in the CDL already. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. We're going to dive through everything today. Firstly, I thought this was just kind of funny, people pointing out from, well, back in June, when Trek were talking about the new maps, the excitement around Black Ops 6. We know at the end of the day, there are many positive things about this game. The major negative, of course, is the way the maps currently are. We know that Hacienda is arriving in a couple of weeks. Hopefully that'll be good and won't have doors on it, which I'm not going to lie, is a bit of a concern for me. And there's other maps potentially coming down the line as well. We need them as soon as possible, and I think that was one of the big takeaways because, to be honest, over the last few days, we've not seen many scrims streamed publicly, right? This was one example last night, and this is one of the only examples that you really get to see what these maps actually properly play like when you're watching proper CDL competitive, because ranked play doesn't hit the same in terms of how it looks, and even watching 8s and stuff, it's not quite as coordinated as team scrims tend to be. So this is when last night you really get to see how the maps actually play, whether they're any good or not, and well, it's maybe a different story. Last night, big confirmation coming out of the Vegas Falcons. They are finally getting out there to Dallas. So here are the boys at, well, it's Riyadh Airport, it says in the background, and flying out of Riyadh all the way to Dallas. It's a serious flight, and I'm guessing they've got a facility there, like nearby at least where Clayster's going to be living, of course, as the head coach basically now of the roster for the upcoming season. So wishing these boys the best. I mean, it's going to be fascinating, right? I mean, many, obviously, Challengers players around the world aren't going to be so happy that Falcons decided to give their team a chance, but I think it's a nice thing for the scene. And as I've said before, in an ideal world, I want the COD League to be global like this. I want to have, you know, a Spanish team, a French team, a Saudi team, a Japanese team. I don't know, like, okay, wishful thinking maybe there, but you know what I'm saying? I think that's how the league used to be when it was the COD World League a few years ago. It's not been like that for a time, so I think it's good that these organizations are doing this. Will this roster of Xnid, Roxas, King of Body, and Khalid last the test of time? Look, I'm not so sure. That's going to be on these guys. It's also going to be on Clay to get the best out of them, but also figure out, you know, who's the real talent of the roster, who can stay around, who maybe they make changes for down the line, or whether they decide to do that at all. Because a couple of years ago, Paris Legion scored 2 series wins across the whole year. So, you know, that's the bar. That's the bar these guys have to beat. I do think because they will play in a somewhat unorthodox style, I think they will be able to get some results against maybe some of the weaker teams in the league. We'll see. But I'm excited to see how they do anyway. It's an exciting thing for the league. Hopefully they're good. Hopefully they can cause some sort of upset rather than people, you know, knowing going into the series that it's not exactly going to be the best time. But I do think they play interesting COD, even if it might not be the best. But yeah, I think the reality is they're a long way behind, right? I mean, they're turning up here in Dallas now. They've been practicing over the last few weeks against, I mean, what, European teams on serious ping because they're playing from Saudi Arabia. It's not exactly ideal. And now they're getting out there to the Americas where they're going to be even further behind many of the top teams. So, yeah, lots of work and catching up, I think, to do. I'm not expecting much out of them at the start of the season. By the time we get to Major 1, Major 1.5, Major 2, that's, I think, when we're going to be seeing whether, you know, the team can be stable as it is, or whether they're going to need to make some sort of a change. To the benefit, to be fair, of the team, they actually have winnable games on the first weekend. So these are the opening games of the season. Los Angeles Guerrillas Gentlemates against Minnesota Rocker, banger, and then OpTic Boston. And the final game of the first night, actually, well, I guess, yeah, this is midnight, so there's 4 games day 1, is Falcons Ravens. So Falcons versus Carolina, that's, you know, to be fair, of all the series you could play, it is one of the more winnable ones. I mean, you look at the league and you would say, okay, Boston, Minnesota Rocker, you know, Ravens, Heretics, these are the teams you'd expect to be not as good. I actually really like the Ravens roster. I'm not sure the current meta suits them especially well, and also we have really no idea what's happening in scrims right now between most of these teams. So Falcons play them on the first day, and then on the Saturday, so the day after, they play Miami, first game of the day. So in terms of like an opening weekends, it could be worse for Falcons, right? I mean, Ravens and Miami, they'll want to, you know, win one of those series. They'll want to at least take a couple of maps in one of those series. If they don't, it might be looking ugly for the rest of the year. Or maybe Ravens and Miami are just godlike, because the reality is, even if you did know scrim results, you never really know what's going to happen once the CDL officially gets underway. So those are the games. The Heretics boys are making some content as well. Thought that was kind of cool to see. I know Nadeshot was given some clarity yesterday as well on whether he's actually still the CEO of 100T, because obviously he's been streaming and doing the subathon for some time, so it's like, well, you know, what are you doing, Nate? Are you still working with 100T? You not? Of course, we saw yesterday that seemingly he'd at least reached out to Scrappy and said, look, we are going to be unbanning, you know, the sniper, or we're going to try, and then Scrappy had to yield. So he obviously still wields some serious power nature in that team, and Nate basically says, like, he's the CEO, but kind of in name only right now. He still works on, obviously, various things within the organization, but he's not doing, you know, maybe the amount that he used to for the org, which of course makes sense, because, you know, you've got to put the people that are best positions in the places where they're going to do their best work. So I'll share that clip in a second as I share a couple of clips from this scrim last night. So Byron Prolute and his team, so it's Prolute, it's Spart, it's Capsadar, and it's Huke. Team of 4, they won the Challengers Cup recently, best team in Challengers right now. There isn't really too much of a debate about it. So yesterday, they scrimmed up against OpTic, and this has been considered to be kind of like Coach Temp, or well, Temp's team, basically, is how people are describing it right now, because it seems that Temp, despite having kind of retired from competitive play, although I don't think he officially ever said that. He's going to college, I think, this year, which is exciting for him, wishing him the best, but he's still involved in competitive COD, and it seems like he's coaching this team, because last night he was streaming it, which is great, of course, for many of us watching. Unfortunately, I only got to catch a bit of this, but I'll share all the screenshots that we have from last night anyway here in a second. But yeah, Donnie's like, yeah, Coach Temp 1-0 after winning the cup recently, and now they played OpTic last night. So we know that the teams, the pro teams, they will scrim other pro teams, but also they don't tend to want to necessarily scrim teams they play shortly, so therefore top challenger teams are also great partners to the pro teams, especially when they are players. I mean, these guys have all been in the league. Spart won MVP famously at Major 2 2022, right? Absolute scenes. Of course, Capstar was in the league at the start of the last season. Huke was in the league at the start of last season, and that's been for a very long time. And Prolud, of course, got his chance on OpTic a couple of years ago when he subbed in for Illy. So I wanted to share a couple of clips here from mainly, well, I think they're pretty much all from Temp's stream, and well, then we'll look through some of the screen grabs.
Make sure we try and row.
Take it.
On old, spawn trapping, Dashy, really
Kenny weak mid, Kenny weak mid. Two guys mid, take it.
Good mid, bro.
Three,
I have to try this.
Spawn elbow, bro.
Spawn mid.
I'm trying to go out mid, bro.
On time, Shotzzy weak.
They're all going mid.
Stand.
Shotzzy was
Top
weak.
cam, on top of the cam. Sands.
Right now, we're dark right now.
Yeah, they're gonna shot me. Dashy's weak, they're all weak. They're literally all weak.
Yeah, he's gonna be ironing us. He's gonna be
I
ironing
don't
us.
want to hit that.
No. He's on top of the cam again.
Mid.
AG.
Let's top off, by the way.
That's that guy. No, bro. One's for our palm.
Absolute our hall, Dashy. Or their hall.
Actually, absolute.
I'll see that from pop. Oh my god, he's like right under
I'm
me.
going mid with you. Cap, let's go mid, Cap.
Let's
There's
go
first
super
map.
deep.
There's gonna be one here, like to our right or left.
I'm checking left.
Yeah, right now.
Other left.
He's a fucking.
He's right,
Oh
dead.
my god, one's in the left.
Let's go out front.
I need help. I know, I need to hit this.
Tom waiting, but that's still under you, bro, somewhere. And so
In the back on me?
I hear you.
In the back, Pred.
Out of palm, Dashy.
I'm dead, bro. I'm so fucked.
Yo, Pred went their bottom house. Yo, we're flipping. Pred. That's nice. They're on you, Cap. They're on you, back tower. They are 100% on you, back tower. I'm picking up your steps. I have your steps. I have your steps. I have your steps, brother.
You tap, watch your thumb in. Thumb in, ledge. Dead, another one, thumb in, probably.
Tommy ledge. Last guy. Fred. I'm chowing him. Oh, he went ledge. Dashy tower.
Is that tower?
No, they're still spawning out.
Nice, tap.
Yo, yeah, there's still tower on you.
You just fucking flip out.
I mean, right there, I really would have flipped down. Like,
Luckily it worked out, because like,
yeah,
luckily
lucky
it
spawn in
worked
the
out.
back.
That's what I'm saying.
Nah, you're right about that though. Like down at the end of the hills. I'm thinking I have a free def, but like, I should have spawned out right there.
I got like a blessed spawn.
So I don't have every final scoreboard here, unfortunately. Temp's stream, the past broadcasts weren't on, so all I could do is go back and have a look at the clips that were had, and I checked Capsule stream and Prolute stream in the past broadcast were not on either. However, this is, well, at least what we have. This is Protocol Hardpoint, and an interesting one because Shotzzy goes 32 and 30. Kenny gets absolutely slammed, but still has more damage than Pred actually, who got in maybe surprisingly few engagements. But this was Huke's playground right here. Like, he was absolutely cooking, and I think this is why we've seen some screenshots from Huke's play over the last couple of weeks, and people have been like, oh, well, Huke's, he's only doing it against challenges. This is the world champions. Huke comes out with a 41 and 23. Now, is this a massive surprise? I think this is always the question with Huke, and I've made this point a few videos ago, that Huke is killing it online in this like unstructured play in the early part of a game. That is very Huke. Like, he's done this before, he will proceed to do it again. Is that necessarily going to translate to massive success when it comes to, if he gets back into the CDL, going to land on a great team? You know, I'm not sure, but I do think he's better at this game than he has been before. I think that's the main point. Yes, this is a classic Huke situation where he's just frying in these type of environments, but then, you know, translating that to LAN when the game slows down somewhat and he has to play a bit more structured, that maybe is a bit more of a challenge. But look, we've seen it from Huke in the past, and if there is a player right now in challenges that you'd say, look, yeah, there might be some risk here, but if we do pick him up and he works, then it's going to be mesmerizingly good. And there's not many players in the world that can drop a 41 in 23 against OpTic, you know, the world champions, let alone a player that's technically in challenges right now. And that's raw numbers as well. Like, that's not eliminations. In eliminations, I mean, he had, what, 9 assists, so that was in the 50s, right, in terms of eliminations overall. But of course, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows for Huke's team. This map on the skyline here, this is, you know, closing it out towards the end. Dashy was 34 in 20, so we had a real takeover map here, and yeah, a couple of the clips that we saw a second ago, Tent was like, okay, yeah, these OpTic guys are nice with it. But to be fair, over the 5 maps, I think it was 3-2 in the end. Prolute had a bit of a rough one here, 19 in 37. Then there was this scoreboard, another banger from Huke, right? So yeah, it was interesting that a lot of the maps were pretty one-sided. This was quite an interesting one because this is on the rewind. And again, I know that many of the experiences by players or just fans watching this was like, wow, these maps are trash. Like, I'm not convinced that, well, rewind is not good, in my opinion. It might not be absolutely atrocious, but it's certainly not good. Protocol isn't great at all. Red cards, low-key, might be better than those maps I've just mentioned, although it's still not a competitive map as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, Pred had 9 kills here, so that was a really stinker map from him. Huke on the other side had 35, and you went 35 and 22 here, so that was a mega map from Huke. They won this one 250, 142, but the other 2 maps they played the Vault. This was as that came to the conclusion, right, to Shotzzy's 37 and 29. Pred went 29 and 19, so we had one off map, but apart from that, it was pretty smooth sailing. And OpTic won this without too much struggle, and this of course was the red card where OpTic were absolutely frying, and this of course a screenshot from towards the end of that game as well, when it was really OpTic's ARs that were doing the serious damage. So it's interesting just to see a lot of these scrims go down. Look, Huke had some phenomenal maps, he had some slightly weaker maps, but it was the same thing from the other side as well, so it has raised the question, right, what's going to happen with Kyler, with Huke? Does he get signed somewhere? Pred predicted that he's getting signed before Major 1, which is quite the prediction, but to be honest right now it doesn't seem entirely unreasonable. If some teams struggle before Christmas, they may say, you know what, early January, it's time to pull the trigger and make the move. But OpTic, I think, looking good. Of course, it's all about learning at this point anyway, but nonetheless, I think there are teams in the CDL that would not be beating Huke's roster in scrims right now. So, you know, the fact that OpTic won it 3-2, and to be fair, like, all of the maps weren't especially close either way, which was kind of interesting. But very much interested to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Nate, are you still CEO of 100T? Big fan? Technically speaking, yeah. I believe it is more of a technicality than anything. I wanted to, you know, fix up this question when we decided to go full content, but they were worried that the community would not understand why the company was going through so many changes. So I held on to the title. It's like Christmas decorations, dude. You just put them up there because it makes you happy. I'm still very involved, though. Just not, you know, the day-to-day operations. I wasn't very good at it anyways. I can't even manage myself day-to-day.